Computer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another dinner party, another episode at Food and Mood Talks. We're having another conversation here on the series of with Rob, and today's topic is going to be eat not like a thief. So we found that theme to be super juicy and super interesting because I think we can all relate to it differently. And yeah, we're just going to be chatting around what shows up for each of us and how do we feel like a thief around food sometimes, that we need to hide ourselves when we're eating, or with other things that we're doing we feel like we want to get it done really quickly so we're not seen, like caught in action, be spotting the criminal. So it's just going to be really fun to explore where this dynamic shows up in our life, because it's not just around the food. The food is just showing us that we're feeling like a thief in some way, and that could be because it's exposing different emotions. It could be a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. So we want to dive into this, and yeah, again, welcome everybody. Grab your meal, grab your candle, and enjoy this talk. And please, Rob, jump in.
Ooh, awesome. Good to be back with you. Um, yeah, when you were just talking about it, what just came to mind for me is like when I eat fast food, like when I eat Chick-fil-A. I don't know if y'all have Chick-fil-A in Mexico or not, but Chick-fil-A is like a here in the States is a big, they have chicken sandwiches and the line in the drive-thru is always out the door. And I tend to get a cookies and cream milkshake when I go there too. I just splurge. Like, well, I'm already getting the fried chicken sandwich and the French fries. I might as well get a
And orange
milkshake too,
soda.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, no orange soda. None of that anymore. But it's funny, like I eat it really fast. Like I eat really quickly, almost as if my body's trying to scarf it down before I realize that I actually don't necessarily want this. Um, but like when I eat salads or I eat something that's a little more like from the earth and natural, it's like I eat super slow. My body really like sits there and like digests this thing and engages with it. And um, it's an interesting like check-in for me. I'm trying to sneak this stuff from other people, but honestly, I feel like I'm kind of trying to sneak it from myself too. It's like, oh, I know that I don't really want to eat this. And not that I don't, I love Chick-fil-A. Like it's yummy. Like it's great. Uh, but like I start getting it sometimes, like when I'm going to work or whatnot, I'll eat it like multiple times in a week. And I know that doesn't feel good for my body. And, but so I'll like eat it so quick because I'm trying to almost like, yeah, almost like, not catch myself doing it, eat before I'm like,
Yeah.
I've realized it.
And the crazy thing is that it also becomes like something that reinforces the different, like say for example, the first two times that you had Chick-fil-A, right? You were in a certain emotional state and you had a Chick-fil-A and you're like, oh fuck yes, this feels amazing, this tastes so good. And then the next time you want to relive that, right? So it's like wanting to relive that kind of like pleasure of having a need, because at that moment you had a need and then you got that need met with whatever decision that you took, right? And then we think that that decision is always going to be the right one based on the emotion that we want to have. So then it starts becoming a habit. It starts becoming part of our like manager parts that are doing this to kind of fill the need, but it's automatic. So many times I feel like when it's not really meeting that need, but it is automatic, that's when I start becoming the food criminal. It's like I'm doing it really quickly because I'm catching myself, but it's not satisfying that need anymore. So it's kind of like this anxiety, kind of this like paranoia in a way. And it's just like, yeah, feeling like that food criminal. But it's really interesting to see how when that pattern is reinforced, then it becomes automatic. But it's not really about, like you said, you like Chick-fil-A, but like why would you feel guilty about eating it, or why would you feel bad? Because there's something else in play in that moment, right?
Totally. Right. Right. Oftentimes I haven't gotten all my work done for the day. So I want to go feel good with this like really, salty and savory and just like I almost get this like quick dopamine hit as opposed to, because I didn't do other things throughout the day that I wanted to get done. Um, so yeah, yeah.
It's like procrastinator parts as well showing up there, right? Which is totally
Mm,
cool. And it's really interesting because many times, like in my work, I've been through so many different like um little roads around like this relationship with food, and how many times you hear like, yeah, but just before you're gonna binge, just take a moment to breathe and see what you're feeling emotionally. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like that's the last thing that I'm gonna do right now.
mhm,
If I want to like um just sniff in this whatever I'm eating, right? I don't know what it yeah, maybe for me cookies. I love cookies. Something about the texture of it, or like a banana bread, like it's just like if I have this part in my mind that's like eat it quickly because you're not okay and you're trying to avoid something else, like there is no amount of um like in that moment there's no way that I can be like, oh yeah, like see what you're feeling emotionally, because my parts are doing whatever possible to avoid that, so it's like a
mhm,
contradiction. Like I'm not gonna, like my parts don't want to show me what it is that I'm avoiding because it's so difficult to see. And this is also that dynamic with the procrastinator parts, right? And it's really important to realize and to show our parts and to show ourselves that it's not about the food, but there's something there that's like very difficult for us to digest
mhm,
and for us to see. And I think that it's really kind of making it a habit to remind ourselves that it's not about the food, because when we make it about the food, then we just go on a different spiral. And
mhm,
it's really interesting to see how, like, the thief part, it the image that comes to my head is like this thief that wants to rob a bank, right? He goes, but he's so insecure that he spilled his own beans, he like he finds the police. He's like, oh, I'm not trying to rob anything here. And the police is like, what? Like I wasn't telling you anything. But it feels like that is the paranoia internally, right? But when we realize that we're actually not doing anything wrong, and then we can kind of face that, or like you said, it's about taking responsibility. I don't know if you already said it on the
mhm,
recorded call, but we
mhm,
said it before. Taking responsibility, that is when we kind of can step into our power and not need to like get validation from everyone around that I'm not the thief here. Just do your thing. But it's about
mhm,
that alignment, and it comes back
mhm,
to that part of integrity that we were talking about last
mhm,
time.
mhm. Well, yeah, and I think, like what you said at the beginning of that is actually a really great practice of sitting and taking a couple breaths before we're about to binge on something. Like it doesn't necessarily stop me from binging, um,
Mm,
but it helps me bring awareness to like I'm not binging unconsciously anymore. Like it's
exactly.
like okay, like I'm aware because I think we talked about it last week, like of like the snake and shedding and allowing things to just shed as they shed, right? Like right, I'm using food or cannabis or whatever the thing is to cover up something that I'm not really ready to work on or fix or deal with or whatever it may be. Uh, but that doesn't mean I'll never be ready to work on it. It's just maybe it's the kitchen's a little too hot right now. But so like the middle ground there is okay, can I bring awareness to this thing that I'm not working on? Can I say, hey, I'm about to smoke this joint in the middle of the afternoon because I didn't get my work done today and I feel you know shame or disappointment in myself or whatever it may be that I didn't accomplish these tasks, and now I'm going to use this substance to make myself feel good in the moment as a substitute to the fact that I didn't get these things done. Like that awareness is so important for me. It doesn't stop me necessarily from eating the Chick-fil-A or smoking the joint or whatever it may be yet. But it puts a little bit it makes me aware that I'm using this thing in order to cover up something that I could have just done. And
Yes.
so
So
then it gives, right. So then it gives me the opportunity in the future to be like, you know, hey, okay, what if I like for example, in the past, like plenty of mornings I would get up and just like smoke in the morning and then let the day go where it goes and not necessarily get things done. And I've been working lately, like just to put a little bit of distance. It's like, hey, like no smoking until the afternoon, or no smoking until the evening, or no smoking until my work gets done, or like the major conversations happen like this, or whatever it may be. So like just like, yeah, putting a little bit of distance. I think when we're trying to change habits, it's like, oh, I gotta like quit this right now. It's like, whoa, no, that is like not,
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah,
not accessible, you know. But it's like, how
exactly.
can I put a little bit of space? Maybe instead of like getting this anxious feeling and going straight to the kitchen, what if I could get this anxious feeling, take 3 breaths, and then go to the kitchen, you know?
Exactly.
And
And
like,
that's the thing.
yeah,
That's a game changer, you know, and that's why like with a lot of like the different philosophies of kind of stepping in, it feels like many times it's like stepping into a trauma like place, right? Like we don't need to do that and we don't need to justify. So the things that I'm gathering from like what you're saying is that one, bring awareness. That's super important. Bring awareness. So use the breaths for awareness, but notice if you're using those breaths, like if I always use internal family systems therapy like terminology, but like if you notice that the managers are the ones that really want to get things done and the ones that want to control. So if we notice that it's the managers taking the breaths, so we stop ourselves from doing that thing that we feel so like repelled to doing, or at least parts of us feel that, that awareness doesn't become awareness anymore. It becomes kind of a self-indulgent well, at least that's how I experience it, is self-indulgent criticism against myself and judgment. And then it's like it feels like that's a green card to start criticizing myself for wanting something else, right? And then it just becomes a shit show. So then I'm just kind of simmering in like my mom says, swimming in my own shit. I'm just simmering in that. And then whenever I get to that thing that I was gonna do, I feel so guilty and dirty doing it. So I just feel worse. And then so that's the thing, you know, the 3 points could either mean awareness or it could mean oh, like this is what I'm doing and I'm noticing it and I'm so ashamed that I'm craving this. Because many times it's not what we do that makes us ashamed, it's the craving. That could be a huge part of it. So like for me, what I realize is like it's just, you said like a practice, like it's just giving that space, because that space in internal family systems terminology is unblending. So unblending from all of these parts that are showing up that we just don't know how to deal with right now because there's a lot going on. So unblending, taking a step back, and then we do what we got to do. But just that as a practice before every time we do it, it's just adding awareness to our life. And that is the best spiritual practice we could ever desire, because this is how our compulsions show us back into ourselves, right? Because it's allowing that space between each and every craving to notice I'm having this craving, just that. So for me, it's just kind of like saying it out loud. I'm feeling super stressed right now, and a part of me believes that, I don't know, this cookie or this hit is gonna make me feel fantastic. That's all I need to say. Not get into the analyzing, because that is just completely like fucking everything up in the
right,
moment.
right. And it does, you know, like I smoke it and I do feel good. You know, when I overindulge, I start to feel bad. You know, and that's
Right.
where like that, right? And so that's the balance of it. It's like the in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, he's like, hey, like the goal isn't to have no desires, it's to be free from your desires. Like it's right. It's not that we desire nothing. It's just we're not attached to those things. We don't need them, but we want them. You know, we like them, and then that can fall into, you know, that can be obviously means for you know, I guess making excuses for us not doing the things that serve us. But it's like if it serves, and I think that's where just being present and aware is so critical, because then we can see the ways in which this thing serves me or it doesn't serve me, right? Like if I like I can, yeah, like I can see, you know, if I go eat this thing, I can, if I'm present with it, I can feel my body. Like when I eat the whole pint of ice cream at night, you know, and I can, like if I'm really present, if I'm not present with it, I just keep eating and I'll eat the whole pint and I'll just go and it doesn't really taste good at the end, you know, but I'm just like in the mode. But if I'm present with it, like I get about halfway through the pint and I realize, okay, had my fill. It's not really tasting good anymore. My stomach's starting to hurt a bit. Let me put it away. Not because it's wrong to eat the whole pint of ice cream or because somebody's telling me to, but like in my body, this no longer feels good to me to continue to imbibe this thing. And that's, I feel like that's what we're really after.
I think
Uh,
that's the gold. That
yeah.
is the gold, and that as a practice, not as goal. So that is the gold, but it's not the goal, because I feel that is just a practice of listening to ourselves, and that is strengthening our intuition. So when we do that, that practice is giving us the authority that we can trust ourselves. So like that's a really good practice, because even like thoughts can be like, okay, just one more. Oh, I just need this little bit of crunch extra. Oh, this is too crunchy, I need a little bit of smooth, just a little bit extra, right? And then there's going to be an infinite crunchies or combinations, like you add more milk to the cereal and then more cereal to the milk, like that's like the cycle. But it's just saying, right now I had this impulse to be like, I don't want anymore, and I'm going to listen to that, because that is my practice, and that is what helps us become more empowered in ourselves and our decisions. And also, like, it's really interesting because I really actually would love to talk to you about this, how this relates to relationships, because I notice how, like, when I get interested in a man, for example, and I get attracted, it's like I really want this um like fairy tale to happen. I love fantasy. I love getting into like just beyond this world situations, right? And I feel that's what a relationship is, right? Like I feel like it's two people, two individuals coming together and sharing a dimension that is like, just like this hugely strong connection. And I feel like that is magical. So kind of that is what I want, and also as a four, for me, the mediocre, the average is like the banal is like where I don't want to be. Like I always want
Mm.
exceptional. I want this person to really, really want to get to know me, to want to get to know the insides of my mind. And like, so there's this huge expectation. And that is like me holding on to that desire of what I want him to be like with me, or how I want him to approach me. And that completely makes me put a wall between that person and me, because I can't see them anymore. I kind of see what I want. And the success version for me would mean that he does exactly what was in my fantasy, right? So
Mm.
like I feel like that is such an interesting dynamic that happens with desires, because like what you said, you don't need to get rid of desires. I don't want to get rid of being attracted to men. This is so fun, like I think that seduction is a way of life. It's like with everything, with everything that we do, with food, with people, with ourselves. That's just a language. It's a poetic language. But when we get stuck and hoard onto a thought or like an expectation, then that desire is taking control of me, right? So how would you see this in this dynamic, like of just being able to play without it getting into that like attachment style that we had from childhood that's really fucked up?
Mm. Yeah, I think that I think I'm just allowing people to be, like realizing that nothing in and of itself is going to make us full. Like that,
Mm.
next week we're going to talk about like finding the ice cream cone that never melts. But this kind of makes me think of that, and it's like, right, we think, and I relate to this leading with type 7. Mine's a little more like you feel the fantasy in your heart and your like emotional longing. I feel the fantasy in my head and my like belief of how things could be. And it's like there's always this, it could always be a little nicer, a little better, or a little more exciting, or a little more this, that thing. But it's not, like life just is what it is. And I think one of the things that's been helpful for me in my relationship is like just so, yeah, like allowing it to, you know, yeah, allowing it to be what it is, and like kind of like not necessarily wanting my wife to like, I mean, sometimes I say, hey, I need you to love me this way, right? There are obviously like needs we have in relationships, and I certain things that I like and don't like, and we communicate those things. But also like she's her own being, and she's gonna show up in her way, as just as I'm gonna show up in mine. And um, I think giving space for people. I think one of the interesting things about relationships is that we can't control the other person. And
Mm,
if all the men in your life just like treated you with the exact fantasy that you have in your head, you wouldn't actually be dating somebody else. You would be just like dating yourself, and that wouldn't really elicit the same type of um, I guess growth or
oh my God, you said it so
dynamics
beautiful.
that
Like I feel like I've been dating myself the whole time, It's like there is no room for anybody else here because I have
right,
my fantasy land, which is so fucking fantastic, But it's
right,
like, yeah, that's you. And it's a wake-up call, Like we can
right,
take it as a
right, and
joke or
that
we can, oh,
yeah, right. The moment that we actually like, there's this awesome, I don't know who said it, but it's like about fighters, and like every boxer has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Like
mm,
everybody goes into a fight with a plan. This is how I'm gonna do it. This is how it's gonna work until you get hit, and now it's all right. Let's fight. And I think that's kind of like you know, for myself included, it's easy to live in the planning world and in my head because I control all of the pieces here. I
mm.
can move everything,
Oh,
right? I everything is infinite. Everything is movable in my head.
it's your
Like
game of chess.
it's right. It's my game, and there are no external rules. But the moment that I actually tangibly play with the world as it is, or with another person, or like with this environment, now there are rules that I didn't create and I don't control, and I can't just manipulate. Like I mean I can, but it's a different type of like manipulation than just what I can do with my mind in my own head. And so it elicits different, it's vulnerable, and it's kind of scary sometimes, but it also like it creates the space for this just like natural flowiness if we allow it to, because it then yeah, you're bouncing off something outside of yourself that then
Mm,
elicits shit that like wouldn't even think of in our own head, because I don't as much as we like to think we're hard on ourselves or this that, like I'm not going to put obstacles in my own way in my fantasies, you know
oh,
but
oh.
the world is inevitably going to put obstacles in my way, and it is in fact those obstacles that make me stronger and help me grow and help me be the best version of myself. And so yeah, there's only so much we can get from the fantasy.
Wow. Wow. And it's crazy because like today I was writing on my journal and just like how funny and ironic it is that everything that we need is inside of us, right? Because in like we can say that till the day we die, but it's so hard to feel that because we think that this shirt that I love so much, this is going to bring me the joy. But this shirt is bringing out a joy that's already within me, right? And that's how crazy it is. Like the idea of fantasies, we're literally savoring an experience that is not even real, but at the end of the day, it's real for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like we're enjoying that, but the idea of thinking it's not real makes us, well, at least makes me feel, I don't know, shame. It makes me feel like this hopelessness and desperation because it's never going to be quenched, this thirst that's never going to be quenched. But at the same time, I think that is maybe the practice of not needing to own things, because even if this man falls in love with me the way that I wanted him to fall in love with me, then my issue is going to be like, how do I keep this love?
Mhm.
That's just another fantasy. So that's the thing. And this is why I feel all cravings are pointing to something deeper. They're pointing to that's not the thing that's going to satisfy you. But it does show us what we're made of. It does show us what we're capable of. And that's why it's the dancing with desires, right? Because it shows us, it gives us glimpses, like with the psychedelics, right? You had these glimpses, you had these even much more than glimpses, and it showed you something, but that's not it. It's just that's not it. It's not about the food, it's not about the weed, it's not about the person, right? And it's just so hard to actually embody that, I feel.
Yeah. Well, right. The things outside of us point us back towards ourselves, and like I feel like the full spiritual journey isn't to go and sit in the woods and be all alone. I mean, that's part of it because we need like that's a piece of it, but then a piece of it also is then taking that and going into the world and interacting with people and it's easy to keep your composure and your patience when you're all alone in the woods and nobody's bothering you. Try and keep your patience and your composure when you're at home with your mother or your father who's hitting you in all those spots that oh fuck man, again, like I don't know, it's like so I think that's really the dance. One of the best lines I ever heard about it is to have strong intentions and no expectations.
Mm.
So like, relationship or whatever, I have my intentions. This is what I want out of it. This is what I'm going to put into it. This is what, these are my intentions. These are, and those should be strong and solid. And like, this is what I'm going to do. But then no expectations beyond that. Like wherever it goes from there, it goes. Cause I think there's a beauty in the serendipity of life of just, and ultimately like, as I look back on my life, there are things that have happened and kind of timelines that have been written that I wouldn't necessarily have written myself, but they were beautiful and they were what was like supposed to happen from my point of view. And like, but if I'd always just stayed in how I thought it needed to be, I never would have, those timelines never would have manifest themselves because I never would have let it. It's always got to be, but there's like, yeah, there's a real beauty in just kind of allowing things to flow, um, and open up the way that they open up. I think our minds can get, which is hard for our mind, or like it's hard for our ego body to allow for that because it's unsafe. It's I don't know in the fantasy world in my head. I can control for all the variables, so I feel safe because I know what's going to happen and I know the plan and I know this is going to be around this corner and I'm not in any danger. But ultimately, like if you live life long enough, you realize that all those plans, like I said earlier, all those plans go out the window the moment you get punched in the mouth. They don't really. You can plan all you want, but um,
Yeah, and even if you don't get punched in the mouth, I feel like the biggest punch is that we live a life of solely controlling, right? It's like I need this to happen so this can happen, and this to happen, and this, and then that feels kind of like the myth of this one, the myth of Sisyphus.
I love that one.
So it's crazy because for me that is the biggest punch in the mouth because it's a never ending. Like it's just constantly, you're just gonna constantly push the ball uphill, right? And that's I feel this is why I really love Eckhart Tolle. Like I feel like he's just a very grounded way for me to understand of the fantasy that I have that it's better on like if it's I don't know if it's better on the other side, but yeah, like it's always there's always more to do. There's always more that I need to give for myself to achieve more. And that in itself is perpetuating the cycle of not being able to rest or not being able to be satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's so a friend of mine actually wrote a song titled Imagine Sisyphus Were Happy.
Ah.
And I love that idea because
Yeah.
life is very much like the myth of Sisyphus. We wake up every day and like I washed my dishes last night, right? I'm gonna go cook today. I'm gonna have to wash my dishes again tonight, and the next day, and the next day, and for the rest of my life, as long as I'm living here and I'm cooking for myself, I'm gonna clean my dishes, and I'm gonna make my dishes dirty. And then I'm gonna clean my dishes and I'm gonna make them dirty. I'm gonna clean my dishes, I'm gonna make them dirty. For the rest of my life, I'm gonna push this rock up a hill, and it's gonna fall. And then every time I eat, the rock the rock falls back to the bottom because now the dishes are dirty again. And so it's not really like, I think what we're taught in life is that it's about what rock you're pushing up what hill. And it's not. It's about, can you be present when you're pushing the rock? Can you be happy when you're pushing the rock? Like, it really doesn't matter what rock it is or what hill you're pushing it up. It's just, can we be present and aware and happy in the action of pushing the rock?
Yeah. And for that, I feel like there would be two elements, maybe many more, but so one is knowing like Lila, right? Like knowing this game that we're in, like this game of life and the illusion. So that would be one for me. And the second one would also be having a meaning for pushing that ball. Because otherwise it's just like, why am I doing this? Like for somebody else? Like, like I'm, yeah. But then the thing is, if we know that it's just a game and it's an illusion, and when we accept, there is this alchemical change, right? So it's crazy how like even with psychedelics, I think this is what helped me see like the alchemy of life. It's like, wow, like wow, what is going on in our minds, and how is this related to like our 3D, like our dimension, right, in our life? And it's like it's so trippy. But like seeing that it's just the way that we look at things that alchemically changes also the processes in our body, right, of how we see life. Like colors become more vivid. We don't live with paranoia, because like living with this constant anxiety and paranoia is what closes us off to life, which is what prevents us from seeing like the magic in the presence, right? So Eckhart Tolle says that you need to have like either of these three. So he says enjoyment, like enjoyment is super important in the way that we're living our life. And every single moment, am I feeling enjoyment? If it's no, because many times we have to do things that we're not necessarily choosing, like acceptance is the other one, because if we can accept, we're just flowing with the current task or current situation, but like fully accepting, because when we're rejecting and like or repressing, then we're already closing off. And I think that there's something here about closing off maybe our heart. I don't know what it is, because it happens to me so often, especially with my mom. I just completely close off and I feel hard and I feel like I need to disconnect. And it's really weird because my mom is the person I most love in my like growing up and my life. And it just feels like I close off, that I can't even look at the situation with compassion anymore because I'm just hard, you know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the enjoyment and acceptance piece, like, and I liked what you said about you know, understanding the game and then also having meaning, right? It's like, and I think this is where a lot of like, where all the world religions kind of take us, and we like, right, the thing that's hanging over our head, you said earlier, it's like we're always going and there's always something to do. Ultimately, the thing that's always hanging over our head is we're going to die. Like this body, there is no way that this body is permanent. That there's no, I mean, maybe they'll create cryo tubes and chambers and this and that, but even that's prolonging. That fine, you prolong yourself for 1,000 years, you put your consciousness into AI, whatever. The computer is gonna die, right? Like something's gonna happen where this thing that we know, this personality, this body, this mind, this incarnation is going to cease to exist at some point. And that's the thing that hangs over all of us, that can be really, like every little piece of control, every like minor thing we try and control is just a mini way of us trying to control this really big looming thing that is our death. And when we realize that, and we just like see it for what it is, that life is this up and down and up and down, and this wave that comes out of the ocean and returns to the ocean and comes up and returns and comes up and returns over and over and over again, then we don't get so jarred by all of the change, because it's like, oh yeah, I push the rock up the mountain and it comes back down. Right? I create this whole long life. I have a family, I have kids, I have money, I have a job, I have all of these identities, and then I die, and I bang. Now that soul gets reborn and a new baby, and it's got to push this rock up the mountain all over again, So then it's all right, if that's the reality, if that's what life is, objectively looking at it, then it's okay, cool. And I'm here. So what am I gonna do? What are we gonna do with it? Am I gonna try and be somewhere else, or am I gonna be here? And I think that's where like it really comes into like not eating like eating not like a thief is that acceptance of like, this is where I am and this is what it is. And nobody put me here, and I didn't sneak in here. Like, I'm here, and I'm gonna push whatever rock I'm pushing. I'm gonna do whatever thing it is that I'm doing.
Oh my God, yes. And also at the end of the day, because we create our like reality, at least internally, I mean, there's still so much I want to explore with how they say you create your external reality. Definitely something super interesting for me to explore. I still don't get it. I'm wrapping my head around it, but we definitely create our own internal reality, like our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, all of it, right? Like it's just our chemistry lab. So if we're eating like a thief, also just knowing that we're consuming like a thief as well, or we're like having this dynamic of punishing and the punishee and like the top dog and the underdog, and this is affecting how we're experiencing our life. And one thing that would be really cool to play with as well is like, okay, right now I brought in my thief persona, my thief archetype, and because this is my decision at the end of the day, I'm creating my own reality. I can also choose to bring on a different archetype. I can choose to bring a different persona. And this is what I love about like a lot of movies and the game of seduction, right? It's like people that are like really well put together doesn't mean that they don't have fear or that they don't feel it. It's just that they've worked hard into like really developing a part of themselves. And many times it's because they had a very lonely upbringing, right? So then they wanted to become this like Casanova, and then they're able to play many different roles based on who they want to conquer or what they want to achieve, right? Who they want to charm. So this is a tool for us, right? Use it at your own risk in whatever way that we want, but it's realizing at the end of the day, we're creating our reality. And if we decide instead in that moment when we feel like we're eating like a thief, be like, okay, like what would really make me feel good right now? Like who can I summon right now? What archetype, what persona? And play with that, because at the end of the game, again, it's all a game. And when we forget that it's a game and then we take things seriously, then we're like, I'm forced to be a thief because I have no other way, right? So I think it's just like really the most important thing is bringing insight into like an observation into like what is going on internally and what has been a pattern.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and I think, yeah, I think it's easy to get really rigid into these game roles, and I am this, and this is all I am and who I am, and get really attached to that identity. And so then we have these other desires that don't fit that identity, and so it's, oh, I got to sneak it because I need to somehow fit that triangle into a square hole, as opposed to like realizing our multidimensionalness and say, hey, you know what? Sometimes I'm a square and sometimes I can actually be a triangle, and that's okay. Like, I don't have to try and sneak this triangle in. I can just be a triangle today. Like that's fine.
Right. Yes, definitely. I love that. And I think that's super important to really get to know our different parts or get to know our different archetypes. And really like embrace them, like cherish them. Like once my therapist asked me like what kind of persona, what kind of eater do you want to like, do your parts feel like being right now? Like, well, a part of me really wants to be like Breakfast at Tiffany's, Audrey Hepburn, having a croissant outside a jewelry store, be like, yes, it's not about the croissant. I'm really enjoying the beauty of these jewels and dreaming big and whatever. So that's an archetype of mine, which is like the more French, like delicate
Mm.
meals. And then I also have the other one that's like, she is like, I don't know, like in the jungle, right? Like she wants to hunt and she wants to eat meat and she wants to feel and she wants to be intense. That's another equally present archetype.
Mhm.
And the question that we need to ask ourselves, and maybe we can seal it off with this, is who do I want to be right now? That's all
Right.
that matters,
Right.
because we have all these archetypes at our disposal. You know, it's like the collective unconscious is where everything is shared. You and I, everything is shared there. So we have access to this. And by not eating like a thief, by not feeling like I need to hoard everything right now, we're trusting that we have access to all of these different parts of us and can settle into that.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that like it goes, back to like this idea of purpose and why we're here and what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of times that like that question gets really big of like, what is my life's purpose? What am I supposed to be doing here? What it's like, let's just take it a little one step at a time. Like, what's my purpose in this moment? You know, like last night, for example, buddy I bartend with, he kind of had a rough night and his car broke down and he ended up sleeping in the parking lot and like it was this whole thing. And I was getting ready to go home. But like something that's important to me is being there for people. Like as a coach, as a friend, like I want to be there to support people when they're down, or they need somebody to talk to. And I was just like, okay, so my purpose in this moment is to take an extra 30 minutes before going home and sit in the parking lot with this dude and like talk for a minute. And it's almost midnight and I'm ready to go to bed. But it's like, this is my purpose in the moment right now. And how does that serve, like he's not paying me money. I don't need him as a client. It's not necessarily serving like this big career purpose or whatever it is I think of, but it is at the same time because that's how I want to show up. And I have this opportunity with this person right in front of me to show up as a friend for them and to like hold, like to just be there when they need someone to talk to. And like that's enough. I think also like in our world of, you know, uh capitalism in Western society is like if you don't make money, it doesn't have value. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, like so many things have value. Creating art has value, creating beauty, like sharing a smile on the side of the street, eating a croissant and feeling like Audrey Hepburn, like feeling the breeze on your face, like all of these little things, like that's the beauty of life, like that's it, like that's the essence, like that's the sauce. Is it's not about like, there's this wonderful and maybe this is like this might be a good one to close on, but there's this like Sufi story about the town of liars. Have you heard this one about
No,
the town of
please
liars?
tell it. No.
So this boy, he meets this Sufi teacher and they're talking and he likes him and this and that. And he's like, hey, I want to see you again. Where do you live? And the Sufi teacher's like, I live in the town of liars. And so, a couple weeks go by and the boy goes to try and find this teacher and he's wandering all over this countryside. He's like, hey, do you know where the town of liars is? Do you know where the town of liars is? And nobody knows. Nobody can tell him where it is. And then he finally meets this one guy. He said, well, I don't know like about this town of liars you're talking about, but there's a dude who sounds like who you're describing that lives up on the hill there. And the boy says, okay, well, I'll go check that out. And he goes up and he finds the Sufi teacher. And the teacher's like, and the boy's like, what the hell, dude? Like, I've been walking all around trying to find this town of liars and nobody knows what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean you live in the town of liars? And the Sufi teacher walks the boy over to the cemetery and he says, I'll show you. He says, you see there, they say that there lies the king and there lies the carpenter and there lies the blacksmith. But they're just dirt. And when they came into the world, they had no distinctions. And at the end of the day, when they're laying in the dirt, they have no distinctions. So all of that stuff in the middle It's just lies. They're just a ton of liars.
Oh,
And
oh my God.
yeah,
Oh,
I love that one because it's like such a beautiful reminder of like, ultimately, we're the Joker. Ultimately, we're dust. Ultimately, we're spirit. We're essence. We are just this esoteric ocean. And at this current moment, as we currently sit, you sit in the body of Sarah, and I sit in the body we call Rob, and you do psychology and yoga and food stuff, and I do basketball and life coaching and all, like, and bartending and whatever. Like we do put on these personas in order to exist and play this game in the same way that an actor puts on a coat or a makeup or a mask or whatever, but ultimately we're not the thing we're putting on. And
oh my,
so it's, yeah, how can we like accept and understand this like reality of life as it is, and then also play it fully in earnest, and actually
exactly.
like
Passion for
you
the
know
art.
yeah, really like create with this thing. It's almost like, it's like my buddy's a magician, and he showed me how some tricks, like I did some tricks, but they're still fucking amazing. Like even if like even understanding the fact that he's doing sleight of hand, I still can't see him do it when he does it. Like he tells me how it happens, but when he actually does it, I can't. It's fucking amazing. And like life is the same way. Like I know how it is. We
Mm.
all know we're gonna die. We all know, like we can look at this shit objectively. And the fact that we're here breathing and talking and communicating thousands of miles away via screen, and like, it's fucking magic, and it is so incredible and so beautiful, and like, yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
ought
what
to
I'd
enjoy
love
it.
to, I'd love to just kind of like end up with some keywords that are coming up to me, and just one is humility, right? Like I think that it's so important to listen to the moment, what this moment is asking for, instead of
Mm,
acting from our patterns of
mhm,
suffering, tightness, and being stale. So humility to listen. Another is to play and to like seduce the moment, to really be that actor, be that the most charming actor that you want to be. You can be that, or you can be the shittiest actor that you want to be, but know that it's your game and we get to play it how we want. Integrity is another word that's coming up for me that's super important as well. When we do things, we own up, we take responsibility for what we do and the consequences. And yeah, we're all a town of liars. We're our own, we're the liar. It's weird. It's so weird to wrap our head around it. But I feel like just to kind of like the digestif here is we don't really know anything. So let's just kind of keep on playing and keep on discovering and learning about how we're relating with life and with others.
mhm.
And I love this conversation so much, Rob. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody watching and eating with us and consuming this amazing conversation and this art of living. And we will see you on our next episode of Dancing with Desires next week. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Sarah.